A senior Democratic aide said legislation to create a 9/11-style commission will be introduced in the House within the next 3 days. To get a sense of what an investigation like this will take, the 9/11 Commission had a full-time staff of 80 people and a budget of about $15 million. Its work took 20 months, reviewed more than 2.5 million pages of documents, and interviewed more than 1,200 people. Joining us now is the chair of the 9/11 Commission, Tom Kean. He is also New Jersey's former Republican governor. Sir, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. You've said that the commission should have subpoena power. What are some of the things the commission can do that an impeachment trial could not do?
Well, first of all, you can fact find, but actually what happened in the Capitol that day, because we still don't know. Was it pre-planned ahead of time? Did these groups come to Washington with that idea of attacking the Capitol? Was people stimulated just into a riot when the president spoke, and then they just had, or did they get to the Capitol itself and then invade? And how many weapons were involved? What planning? It needs a full investigation to find out all the facts, not just for the American people, but so we can make conclusions and make recommendations to make sure this never, ever happens again.
You say it is vitally important to be selective in who exactly is on this commission. But in an age of hyper-partisanship, what would be the ideal candidate for you? Who do you want to see on the commission?
Well, I got some ideas, but I don't want to give you any names because I give those to the congressmen who are going to do the appointing. But look, I'll tell you the description of people. It's people who have no ambitions for the future. They're not looking for gain for themselves. People who have a history of bipartisanship, in other words, able to reach across the aisle. People with a reputation for putting country first whenever an important issue comes up. And people, many of whom were outside of Washington, not just inside of Washington. The 9/11 Commission had two former governors, people who had served inside Republican and Democratic administrations, a few former congressional officials. But we were all has-beens as far as the political world goes, and none of us were planning to run again for anything. So we could really give our full attention to what was best for the country. And in the end, as you know, we had an unanimous report, and based on that report, we redid the whole intelligence apparatus of the United States. And the result has been we have not had anything approaching 9/11 since. So it was successful. And by the way, our report is still being used in college classrooms as a textbook.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And trying to find people who are statesmen, if you will, if you want to use that term, elder statesmen that the country does appreciate. How do you get, though, a bipartisan commission when there is that, partisan polarization within Congress and people like Ron Johnson saying that this wasn't even an insurrection? I mean, how do you get a team in place? It's like having the 9/11 Commission with participation of those who planned the 9/11 attack. I mean, not to compare the two, but how can this even work?
Well, it'll be the leadership in both parties who make the determination in the end who's going to be on the commission. And if you follow the precedent the 9/11 Commission set, then the chairman will be appointed by the president. The chairman and the vice chairman are very, very important because they're going to have to work together. And they establish a standard. They're probably going to appoint the staff, and the staff has got to be as nonpartisan as the commission is. So the staff itself, I had a rule that I set up at the beginning of the commission. And the rule was, look, we recognize people are Republicans and Democrats, and that's just fine. But if you'd recently worked in a Republican campaign, or you'd recently worked in a Democratic campaign, then we weren't going to put you onto the staff. And I think we had 13 people recommended, or 12 people recommended for counsel. Every one of them were disqualified on partisanship basis. And finally, the 13th we picked, and the 13th turned out to be a great counsel. Went on with us. So you got to have that nonpartisan or bipartisan tilt to it, and that's got to be there from the beginning. And the Congress itself has got to establish that as the goal.
And so once it is in place, how far should the scope of the investigation go? How much power do you think that commission should have? For example, whether any groups got funding to storm the Capitol, or the influence of QAnon conspiracy theories, whether that played a role on rioters. What areas should be investigated? Because this is such a broad scope of an investigation. Even now, when you're just looking at those that the FBI is trying to track down, they're telling you this is one of the largest investigations they have ever had to undertake.
Wide in scope, not as wide in scope as the 9/11 investigation. So it's very doable. And the key thing is how the Congress words the instructions. When they write the law, set up the commission, there'll be instructions as to how the commission should operate and what the scope should be. And we were very careful about that 9/11 commission. Lee Hamilton and I used to go back and read the commission, what the Congress had asked us to do to make sure we were always stayed within that scope and didn't get outside of it. And this has got to be the same.
I got to ask you really quickly. I know that one of the people who spoke on January the 6th was also a key figure during 9/11, Rudy Giuliani. Do you anticipate that the mayor will cooperate with this commission the way that he did for yours?
I would hope so. I hope everybody cooperate. And you know, one thing the commission's got to have, by the way, is subpoena power. Not that you have to use it always. Hopefully you never have to use it. But, you know, if there's a possibility of a subpoena out there, a lot of people who might not testify willingly come forward and testify. And that was our experience. We very seldom had to use it. We used it only once, I think. But the fact it was there gave us the ability to really fact find in the investigation.
Do you think they should subpoena Giuliani if he refuses to come in front of the commission?
Hey, that's a decision for the commissioners to make.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.